That's how the city got its name, starting a long Dutch tradition of naming things as obviously as possible. We have an old church called the Old Church, a new church called the New Church, a North Church, an East Church, a South Church, and a West Church. Everything very straightforward. Now, the city started off as a small fishing village, but we quickly grew to become an important trading city in the area. At this point, however, we didn't rule ourselves. We were ruled out of Vienna, the Holy Roman Empire with a seat in Vienna. In the 16th century, that empire split in two. Half it ruled from Vienna and half it ruled from Spain. Amsterdam fell under Spanish rule. Okay, good. I was like, something that carries babies flipped over. We fell under Spanish rule. King Philip II, I'm sure was a lovely man once you got to know him, but to the locals, he was nothing but a rotten piece of garbage. He treated us like a bunch of peasants, when at this point, we're already very wealthy, industrious merchants, and we didn't like to be treated like peasants, so we decided to fight for our independence, which was a big deal. At the time, Spain was a global empire, and Holland just a collection of small towns. But fight we did, in a war that would last for 80 years. And can you guess what we called this 80-year war? Yes, the 80-year war. The 80-year war ended in 1648 with the defeat of the Spanish. Amsterdam, for the first time in its history, is free. We decided we didn't want to have a king anymore. We declared ourselves a republic. We started to send ships around the world, get involved in international trade. It turns us into the richest city on the planet. This is the 17th century, Golden Age, we call it. The Golden Age is when we dominated all the trade routes around the world, became insanely wealthy, but more importantly, we became a center of commerce, of culture, and above all else, of liberalism. We enjoyed freedoms here the rest of the world could only dream about. But you can't become rich and famous without making some enemies. As a great philosopher once said, "Mo money, mo problems." With all the money, the problems came quick. Everybody wanted to take part of our power and money away. From the east, the Germans came in. From the south, the French came in. And from the west, the English attacked, all trying to invade. We were able to stop this invasion, but it did still bring about the end of the Golden Age. 100 years later, the French again decided to invade. This time the year was 1795. They were led by a guy called Napoleon Bonaparte, who's pretty good at invading stuff. So they were successful, and they marched into Holland. They grabbed our Dutch flag, and they made it French by turning it sideways. And then in 1806, Napoleon made his younger brother Louis the very first king of Holland. The Dutch Republic is dead. We have a king now. His name is Louis, and he's actually kind of cool, because he thinks the Dutch are funky. He respects them, and he wants to make a good first impression. So when he comes out to meet his people, Louis decides he's going to speak a little bit of Dutch. Just one great opening line to make a good impression. That opening line was, "I am your king." It's a great opening line, and in Dutch it's very easy to say. "I am your king" is "Ik ben jouw koning." Does anyone want to give that a try?
Ik ben jouw koning.
Ik ben jouw koning. Brilliant.
Ik ben jouw koning.
Great, you make a great king. That's the whole job, by the way. Louis didn't do so well. He came out, waved bonjour, and followed it with "Ik ben jouw konijn," which is a subtle difference. But in Dutch, koning means king. Konijn means rabbit. He announced he was the rabbit. He became known as the Rabbit King. It didn't last too long after that. At any rate, the French Empire collapsed. Happens to us all. In 1815, we were free. Played a quick game called Who Wants to Be the New King of the Netherlands? And a guy called William said, "I do." That's how we got a royal family. Today we have a king. His name is Willem Alexander, and he's okay. No one really cares about him very much, but his last name is Orange. That's why the Dutch wear orange, and we're celebrating being Dutch. In the 19th century, we had a second mini golden age, made a lot of money in trade as a colonial superpower. In the 20th century, we had two big events. First was World War I. Terribly devastating for everybody, but not so bad for us because we remained neutral. So while the rest of the world got busy shooting at each other, we got busy selling to everybody, selling guns to both sides. Business was very good. By the time World War II rolled around, we said, we know what to do. We declare neutrality once again. But this time Hitler had other plans. He attacked and invaded the city in May of 1940, which would have horrific consequences for Amsterdam, for the Netherlands, but especially for the enormous Jewish population that lived here in huge numbers for centuries. The occupation lasted for 5 years. It came to an end on the 5th of May, 1945, when we were liberated by the Canadians.
Yay!
We love Canadians. Every year to this day, the Netherlands sends thousands of tulips to Ottawa. It's a big tulip festival there, and it's our way of saying thanks. And that's where that comes from. Now I know what the Americans must be thinking. What the hell? I thought we won the war. Americans liberate the east and the south of the country, so they don't get tulips. They get something called the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty, which allows Americans to move to the Netherlands very, very easily. Just saying, there's options. In the post-war period, Amsterdam became a center for the hippie movement. Hippies from California brought with them marijuana, and it caught on quite well. The difference between us and other places is we start to elect some of our hippies to government. And bit by bit, they began to transform Amsterdam once again into the world's most liberal city. Unfortunately, this liberalism is most famously expressed through erotics and narcotics. But that's just two very small parts of a really great city. And it's my job to make sure we see every side of it as we go around today. Which leads us nicely to the 21st century, where so far, nothing has happened. We built the North-South line, although it took more than all of the years of the 20th century so far. 21st. Brilliant. Any questions? Nice. I realize that's quite a long story, but it puts everything in order. So when I say things like, oh, the French, you know where it comes from. It's not to do with the World Cup, although it didn't. We are going to begin walking now. We're going to go find ourselves the oldest canal in Amsterdam to go and find a spot to talk about how you take what was all swampland, make it the richest city in the world, and where did all the prostitutes come from. So follow me down this way and take a left towards this beautiful secret canal. It's called the Old Side Rear Neighborhood Wall.
Oh, that's a very lovely one.
Yeah, it is. Nice and straightforward. Outer side, no, it's a front neighborhood wall. Outer side forward wall. The first story, that is protection against the three dangers of medieval Amsterdam. Can you guess what the three dangers of Amsterdam were? Fire, flood, and plague. Great story. It's not true though. They made this up much later. The true story of what the three X's mean, nobody knows. It's just an old symbol and no one wrote down the meaning back then. So any meaning someone gives it now is totally made up. As a family had a lot of land in the area, they had three X's on their, they had X's on their flag. So there's another city nearby has four X's, another one has five. We ended up with three. And why? No one knows. The red, black, and red though, I can tell you, the black line represents the river Amstel, and the red is the city being built on its banks. And then the full symbol has this crown on top of it as well. This is not the Amsterdam crown. It's not the Dutch crown. This is the Austrian crown. It's kind of random. But remember, we used to be part of the Holy Roman Empire, which had its headquarters in Vienna. So Emperor Maximilian, who was Austrian and the Emperor, no, I feel the same way. He, when he was young emperor, he needed money to fight a war, which Amsterdam lent him, and as thanks, he allowed us to put his crown on our coat of arms. So then this became our symbol. Which is a big deal. At the time, Amsterdam was a small city of maybe 20,000 people, and suddenly the emperor is saying, this little town is a cool town. All the people here are super awesome. Look, I gave them my symbol. So we love the symbols, good marketing. However, when we switched from being a Catholic city to being a Protestant city, he was a Catholic emperor, what did we do with the symbol? We kept it, because it's good marketing. That's why it ended up on the gate over here. And now you know to look for the crown, you'll see it all over Amsterdam. It's on the lamppost, there's one right over there. And when we finish the tour later, we're going to finish next to the tallest church tower in Amsterdam. 87 meters of Protestant church, the giant Catholic crown on top. So you can see it for miles. It's good marketing. It's in the business. And that's no problem. This gate is a wonderful gate to an old women's prison called the Spin House. They believed here that they could reform women, take bad women, make them good again, by working them very hard. The work they would do here was spinning. They'd twist fibers and to make thread. You can see it on the left side of this image over there. She's working very hard and feeding a kitten. How cute. If you didn't want to work though, you have the other side of the panel where you'd be beaten viciously by a nun. So it was your choice what happens, but one way or the other, they're going to make you a better woman and get you out on the street. This was the women's prison. Nearby there's a men's prison called the Rasp House. They would rasp wood and use the powder to make dye out of it. And today it seems quite barbaric. At the time it was seen as very progressive. Today we don't do it like this anymore. Nowadays we're quite weirdly liberal about this. See, Amsterdam used to have a massive crime problem, especially in this area near the red light district. This area used to be incredibly dangerous. As recently as 15 years ago, there were streets around here we wouldn't want to go down. We're going to see them on the red light tour tonight. Streets nicknamed heroin alleys. It got so bad the police stopped going down there. And because of this, the city decided to tackle its drugs issue in a new way. Instead of treating drugs as a criminal matter, we began to treat them instead as a health and social issue. So drug addicts no longer need to go to jail, they need to get treatment instead. How's the policy worked out? It's worked incredibly well. It's at the same time that we liberalized the marijuana policy, so we can focus the same time and money on the much more dangerous drug of heroin. How's it worked out? Went from a high of 10,000 junkies in the 80s to fewer than 200 today. Crime has dropped so low in this country that we have to close prisons. In the last 10 years, we've closed over 20 prisons. We simply don't have enough prisoners. We currently import prisoners from Belgium and from Norway. They pay us to take their prisoners, and we take them because we need the money to keep our prisons open. Because when prisons close, people lose jobs. Our current crime problem is what to do with all the unemployed law enforcement officers. It's a great problem to have, and it comes largely from a level-headed approach to drug policy. This policy itself was born out of a philosophy called harm reduction. The idea is, if you have a behavior in your society that you can't control, try to figure out what policies you can enact that's going to limit the damage that's done to your citizens and to your society in general. A good example of this is needle exchange programs. If you have a heroin problem, you don't want to compound that with an HIV/AIDS problem, so you make sure everyone has a clean needle. Here we take this to the next level. In Amsterdam, if you're a heroin addict, you don't get clean needles, you get clean heroin for free from the government. It sounds crazy, but think of it like this. A heroin addict is going to find heroin. That's what they do. Maybe he doesn't have a job. Now he has to steal money to go and buy this drug from a criminal. We think better than stealing money, give it to him for free. Better than getting it from a criminal, get it from a doctor. And better than taking it to the street, they take it in a clinic under supervision. The moment they want treatment, they get it like this. Absolutely free. But of course, there's no such thing as a free heroin. Who's paying for all this? We are, the taxpayers. It's not a cheap policy. It costs 13,000 euros a year per person in the program. But not doing it has costs as well. Having a city full of drug addicts is terrible for the economy. There's a street called Heroin Alley. No one goes shopping there. No sales tax. Sales tax in the Netherlands, 21%. Then these addicts aren't paying taxes. They have high healthcare costs, police costs, prison costs, all these things. It gets very expensive for a city to have a bunch of junkies. The city calculated how much each junkie was costing. They figured each junkie was costing us 30,000 euros a year. And that gives you a sense now of the Dutch mindset. A lot of people confuse us with liberals. They think, oh, the Dutch are so crazy, they want to smoke weed and hug junkies. It has nothing to do with that. It's about identifying the problem, testing out solutions. And if you find something that works and ends up saving you 17,000 euros a year per person, why would you do it any differently? And that's why we do what we do, and it's been tremendously, tremendously successful. Any questions? Yes?
The Dutch people, do they agree globally with this policy, or are there problems?
The Dutch, some people ask us this sometimes, how the Dutch people respond to this idea of my tax dollars are paying for someone's heroin. The Dutch are very pragmatic, so it's really about, oh, we're paying less taxes because of this. This policy seems to work. Also because our political system is so spread out. We don't have two big parties. Our current government is made up of, our current parliament is 14 parties. We have 4 parties in a coalition to create the majority government. So nothing really shifts very quickly. And it means that you don't end up with parties where everything is lumped into one place, you know? So if you have a political system where it's like, okay, I want a big military, and I love gay people, shit, there's no one to vote for. Whereas in here, you can really vote. We have a Green Party and an Animal Rights Party. So if you love nature more than animals, vote Green. But if you really like the animal rights a bit more, you vote the Animal Party. It's very specific. So you don't end up lumping.